We're your hosts,
Aaron Backus
and Jason Kindler.
We like to sit down with our guests to hear their journey, their challenges, and how they impact the local community.
So grab a seat, tune in, and let's get inspired by Jacksonville's everyday workforce.
Welcome to Hometown Jacks. Jessica, I am so happy to have you here on the podcast. Listeners, Jessica Richardson, and I'm going to go through all the designations and accomplishments she has. We are pretty lucky to have her today. Principal, assistant principal, teacher, every single job position there is in the school system. Thank you for coming and being on the podcast today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I am so excited because I come from a long line of teachers, okay? My mom's a teacher, my mother-in-law's a teacher, of course, you know my wife is a teacher. So when you have teacher discussions around the coffee table, it can last for hours. So I've got a ton of respect for teachers, especially principals, so I want to get right into it. It's going to be fun.
All right.
You sent me your resume, and I was just thinking it was just going to be a normal resume. It was filled with awards and amazing accomplishments. Teacher of the Year 2002, Assistant Principal of the Year 2013, Principal of the Year 2019. Like, how do you do it? Is there anything left for you to accomplish, or?
Oh, I'm sure there's things left to accomplish. I just, those awards and recognitions are just something that, are mostly voted on by your peers.
Yes.
And so each one of them was just a humbling honor to be recognized in those different times of my life. The Assistant Principal of the Year was when I was at Cunningham Creek Elementary.
I remember.
And I really think back and owe that school everything I know about special education, and that's what I'm currently doing. And I kind of baptism by fire, and the people there really taught me everything I needed to know. So I felt like that was an award for our whole school. And then the Principal of the Year was after opening Palm Valley Academy in Nocatee.
And yes, that is a big deal. And for you that don't know, she's talking about a brand new school. A brand new school that was not there the year before and is there, and you're in charge of opening it, which has to be a pretty major thing.
Correct. Yes.
So let's go back to a couple things I want to go right out of the gate, and then we'll go into your history. Is there a funny situation that happened while you were principal, teacher, assistant principal? You're smiling, so I'm feeling like something's coming to your mind.
Yeah, there's always, every day inside schools, there's stuff happening.
Yes.
And there's stories. And anywhere place you've got kids, especially at a K-8, you've got, kids that have just turned 5, and you have preteens and those getting ready to be teenagers. That's a lot of
variety.
Yeah. And but I was thinking a lot about being at Palm Valley, and just that school was built in kind of the end of a neighborhood, and we sort of took away land, obviously, that needed to be there to build a school. And I just kept thinking about all the different creatures that have come across my path.
Interesting.
Of being a principal, things you didn't think you would need to know how to do. And so even at Ocean Palms one morning, just the kids were just sitting outside their classrooms, reading before the school day began. Yeah. And I was doing my daily rounds in the morning, checking on everybody, and I realized we had these sound flags that hung from the ceilings, and I was like, well, this is interesting. There's bats hanging from the sound, and they were just sleeping.
Yes.
Just as quiet as they could be, asleep. And the kids just, they just said, Miss Richardson, I think that's a bat up there sleeping. And I said, you are right.
So bats inside of the school.
Inside the school.
Interesting.
So that was fun. But the kids were super respectful, and they were protected animals. So we had to really go through a lot of.
Is that in your Rolodex, a bat removal expert?
I know who to call.
So you've
I know
had
who to call
gotcha.
For getting bats safely outside back into their habitat, and I also know who to call when little baby alligators decide to make their way right by the front door where first graders are coming in from recess. So
oh my gosh.
Those are just a couple of things that I came straight to my head. There's lots of other funny stuff, but you're in nature, and you're in in animals, environments. A really cool thing about the animals too is we actually, on the first day that Palm Valley opened, our mascot, if you remember, was Bobcats.
Yes.
and we saw a bobcat on the first day of school.
That's pretty
near
wild.
Near that bridge,
Well,
that
you
had the
picked
bikers
the right
and
bobcat
walkers.
or the right mascot.
Yeah,
That's funny.
so just, you have to adjust and be flexible, but there's definitely things that I didn't think I would have to know how
That
to do.
is hilarious. I didn't think you would go in that direction. I'd had 1,000 other ideas. Did you do animals? That's amazing.
Well, there's lots of things, but, lots of special codes for different things that need to be cleaned up around schools.
Yes, special
Lots of-
codes. Interesting. That's
Lots of
interesting.
things that you speak a different language around there. You get stuff
wow.
so you can keep
That's
school
funny.
going.
That's hilarious. Now, shifting, was there a really scary situation that you had to deal with that you can remember?
Yeah, I would say anytime that, when you're responsible for, and I'll go back to Palm Valley just because, being the principal there by the third year, I was responsible for over 2,300 students.
Wow.
And a staff of a little under 200. And
Wow.
anytime you're responsible for people and human beings, I think anytime something doesn't go quite right, so
Yeah.
if there's an accident,
For sure.
or somebody's safety is in jeopardy,
Yeah.
those can be really scary times. So I can think back about lots of times where and I don't want to say lots, but the first days of school when all the kindergartners, when everybody needs to get on a bus and go home safe,
Yeah.
and somebody might step on the wrong bus,
Right,
and
right.
be temporarily misplaced is what I like to say. There's nothing that you can say or do to make a parent
Yes.
feel like their kid is safe if
Right.
they don't know where their kid is.
Right. Absolutely.
And we have, again, wonderful, wonderful people in our transportation department. And that becomes everybody's top priority. But
Yeah.
learning how to stay calm and how to keep your staff calm.
Right.
Or a real fire. There was, one day at Ocean Palms, when I was principal at Ocean Palms, it was right at arrival, and our kiln was actually fuming.
Okay.
So, it's an unplanned real fire, which is not a fire drill.
Right.
And nobody had taken attendance yet.
Okay.
So then you're trying to figure out, where is everybody? Is everybody safe? Do we have everybody out of the building? And then, and just things that happen. There's been plenty of I've ridden in a lot of ambulances
Yes.
with kids because their parents couldn't get there in time and so just I think back about all those times, and those are scary.
Yeah.
But that, training a staff to remain calm and how kids respond
Yeah.
in those situations.
Yeah.
And then knowing that, you can look a parent in the eye and say, I'm here, your kid's okay, we're going to get through this together.
Amazing.
So,
Yeah, I've always wondered how you keep track of all the kids, especially the young ones that have no clue what's going on and getting on the bus and all of that. Because I can just remember, and you have kids too, I can remember back putting your kid on the bus for the first time, how terrifying that is. So transferring that to hundreds of them that you're
Right.
responsible for.
right. And
Yes.
just, processes, procedures. Kids are resilient and kids like routine. And so, putting those things in place
Yeah.
so that whether you have 200 kids on buses or 1,000 kids on buses, you're following the same protocol.
Right.
And working with our school district transportation department is a huge piece of that. And we've come a long way in how we can make sure kids are safe.
Yeah, we take it for granted as parents. That's amazing. I'm really glad you brought that up. So I want to go back to the beginning. So let's think of Jessica coming right out of high school. What am I going to do for the rest of my life? So is it win principal of the year? Is that what you knew right off the bat?
No, I never saw myself as a principal. I was a communication major when I first started.
Okay.
And very quickly changed my major when we moved from North Carolina to here to Jacksonville.
Okay.
And I entered UNF.
Okay.
I made a pretty quick decision. I was playing on the soccer team for UNF as well.
Okay.
And had to make a pretty quick decision that, backup goalkeeper versus getting a degree and how I'm going to do this now that I'm missing a bunch of classes. And I changed my major in between. So the soccer was fun, but it had lived its lifespan.
Now I know why soccer is a big part of your family.
Yeah. And so I started in the education major at UNF.
Okay.
And just, I think I think back, I babysat, I taught swim lessons my whole, life. I tutored. So it came natural to me to be around kids and to help kids want to learn, whether it was the skill of a sport or help with an academic subject through elementary school. I wasn't very good after that. So that's how it started.
Was your parents teachers?
My parents were not teachers.
Okay.
My grandmother worked in a preschool, but I think back about those kind of essential, those people, those role models that you're like, hey, I want to emulate that person when I'm a teacher.
Yeah.
And it was my 4th and 5th grade teachers. And I mean, clear as day, I still keep in contact with them through Facebook.
That's crazy.
You know, I wanted to, my 5th grade teacher read to us every day. It was a male teacher, read to us every day after recess. And I loved just going into this world of fiction and fantasy when he would read with his voices. And I did that the entire 12 years I was a teacher. Read a lot of the same books that he read to us. And
so you clearly remember your 4th and 5th grade teacher.
Absolutely. Mr. Barry Clay and Miss Rhonda Fugly.
Oh my gosh. Shout out to them. Shout out to them. That is incredible. And you could probably point to those two as really being your motivator to be in the education.
Absolutely.
Wow. Yeah. That's interesting. It is very important to realize how impressionable kids are. I think we forget about that. I know I do. That's pretty unbelievable. I was expecting a parent or something like that, but to go that far back, that's incredible.
No, I mean, my parents definitely were supportive of different things we were doing, but and my mom worked at school, I will say that, so I really kind of grew up, even though she wasn't a teacher, we lived overseas, and so we were in an international school system. And so my mom started out as the bus aide because the bus drivers didn't speak English. And then she was the media paraprofessional. She has an accounting background, but she worked in the library. And so I went to the library every day after school to do my homework. And then she ended up being the principal's secretary. And then after I was in high school, she worked in like what we would call a central office or district office, more in the finance piece, taking care of principals and superintendents for the
So you
overseas.
did have some
so I was always around school, and we were always around teachers because in that climate and culture where we lived in the Middle East, we really did life with the people that were at the school too. So the teachers were a lot of husband and wife couples. And really that socialization piece and things we did outside of school was that community.
And where was this in the Middle East? That's pretty
in Saudi Arabia.
Wow, awesome. And how long were you there?
I was there from 2nd grade to 8th grade.
Wow.
And then my parents were there for almost 30 years.
My gosh, wow. Didn't realize that. That's awesome. That's awesome. That's a kind of a cool contrast to administration, school over there to bringing it back over here. But you can clearly say that you really had that desire from day one of helping kids, being around kids, educating them, it sounds like.
Yes,
okay.
Very much so.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We talked about role model. We already answered my next question. I love that. What motivates you in education? Like, you know, it's extremely hard work. I mean, I know that. I've seen it personally. I mean, it's long hours, lots of stuff you have to do. There has to be a drive. Like, what's driving you to get to the next day?
Right. Yeah. I think, you know, being a teacher and even in the role I'm in now, I think it's always just been about being a helper and being a servant leader. And so, when you trying to look at each day as a new opportunity, I mean, they're all different. No day is the same.
Right.
And you don't really know what, I mean, you can have the best laid lesson plans and something will probably not go your way. But knowing that you have the responsibility on your shoulders to expose students to their curriculum, to a holistic approach to education, to molding them into so they might be inspired to be a teacher or to do something else. That you're laying the foundation for that, especially I taught elementary school. So, what motivated me every day was getting to go and know that I was helping someone become smarter today than they were yesterday.
Yeah.
And then if they struggled, being able to help them overcome those struggles. I mean, it's a pretty powerful and impactful job.
Well, you can see improvements pretty quickly, right? You see the fruits of your labors pretty quickly.
Absolutely. And so I think that's the drive is just, I don't think most people, anyone would necessarily say they're going into education for money. Or,
right. We know that.
There's some great benefits to still being a public educator, with retirement and things like that.
Right,
but I think most people go into it because they have a heart for learning and they have a heart to watch people grow.
Right. Well, it's interesting. I mean, to be in it as long as you have and to be as decorated, you absolutely had to have the heart. It's kind of interesting. I interviewed a young lady that ran a retirement home a couple of weeks ago. Same thing, the heart, like her heart for elderly people was there from day one. It's very interesting to kind of see what drives and motivates people. That's awesome.
Right.
We were also talking about what's the most rewarding thing in education. I think you kind of answered that a little bit, is really just seeing that immediate growth. Like what's an example? Like, Monday you come in, you have a lesson plan and you lay it out, and literally Tuesday they come in and they execute it and you're like, wow, they couldn't do that on Friday before. Is that kind of it? Or
yeah, and I think just back, it's been a while since I was in the classroom. I love being a teacher. And so anytime even I get to, plan as an administrator, even still like your lesson planning turned into more like your faculty meetings and planning engaging opportunities for your adult learners.
Right.
But, I think back about, starting in second grade, because that's where I taught for 10 years. They came to you as pretty decent readers, and then you could take what they would, like what Christy did for so long was first grade. So she taught them how to read, and then when I got them, it was like you could just put it all together. And so planning these great units where they got to then, you teach them a skill and then put it together into some project that they would implement and working in teams, and then just watch them sort of like that light bulb moment. Those are the things that were really rewarding. So yeah, you're talking about a science lesson, and on a Monday you do a couple of things and you're like, oh, now they understand the concept of the life cycle. And now they've created their own, at the time, like diorama of the life cycles, and they got to pick their animal and they did the research, and and then you're helping an 8-year-old learn how to become a public speaker.
Yeah. Wow.
So in a matter of a week, you can do a lot of things with conflict resolution and problem solving and decision making and reading comprehension and written expression. And
that's awesome.
So
you mentioned reading. Do you think that's probably one of the most important things that the readers excel? Is that very correlated?
Yeah, absolutely. Once you have, when you go back and you really study the science of reading and what it takes to learn to read, it's pretty fascinating. The neuroscience behind it, and so then to watch it happen before your eyes and watch someone just become not all kids become lovers of reading, but now they can read to process information. So, and that opens.
Do you think the love of reading is kind of innate, or is that something that they can be turned on to?
I think you can with the right. You talk to any media specialist, and they'll tell you just need to be connected with the right type of book for you.
Right.
And then people, I think, can enjoy reading in different ways now. That's you can still be a learner of new content, new knowledge through like the audiobooks and things like this, like a podcast. Like people are still gaining their information. Not everybody has to be sitting down with a book in their hand, but some people love that.
Yeah, for sure. So. Well, the more successful people I study over the years, reading always seems to come back to it. Like the people that are super successful are reading a lot of books. They're mowing down 12 to 20 books a year. And I'm like, wow, that's impressive.
Yeah. And I would say just, with how technology has evolved, so somebody because now my main role is overseeing all of our exceptional student education department for the school district. And so watching someone struggle to learn to read is also, that's challenging. Yeah. And so to be able to take away a barrier so someone can still, someone that has severe dyslexia, which, is not going to just be cured, to watch them be able to flourish because they can listen to the content and they can gain just as much knowledge as that person. They can listen to those 16 or 20 books or the news or whatever the content is for their college coursework, and have the ability to do that and have the ability to have curriculum read to them, textbooks read to them. To me, that has just broken down so many barriers for students on the opposite of that will probably always struggle to pick up a book and read it.
So that brings up a good point. So tell me what you're doing right now. You've done so many different things. Like, what is exactly your job right now?
So right now I'm the Senior Director of Exceptional Student Education for the school district.
Okay.
So I facilitate and supervise all of the departments around special education.
So when you say exceptional student, that means like a certain classification, or what is that?
Yeah, so everything from students with disabilities to gifted,
Okay.
so along that continuum. So anyone that has a recognized disability,
Okay.
So that might be someone that's with a mild disability,
Okay.
a mild reading disability, or a math disability, to more complex disabilities like intellectually disabled or an other health impairment, anxiety, and or medical fragile students. Our department oversees all of the support services like physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy that we deliver into schools to help students.
So you're charged of setting the bar or the guidelines, and then it gets infiltrated throughout all the schools.
I follow the law.
Follow the law. Yeah,
and
that's
help
what I meant.
people.
You're not creating the law.
No. And then have our whole department is probably 250 people, but a lot of those people are direct service into schools every single day.
Got
and
it.
then I have a department of about 30 that help manage those different, speech or gifted or varying exceptionalities or intellectual disabilities or our behavior disabilities and our special programs that we have in
That
schools.
just seems like a monumental job. But you're used to monumental jobs. What difference does it make? What do you find most difficult about education? Like the challenging, like the obstacle. Like, is there something that comes to your mind?
I think just kind of what the same thing we were talking about with motivates you and your celebrations of successes is just every single student you come across, and now I think about a lot. I mean, I work a lot with adults, and making sure there's adults have what they need to be able to help the students.
Right.
And so I did that as a principal too. I felt like my role as a principal was to remove a barrier, whether it was for the front desk receptionist, the custodian, the person running the cafeteria. It was my job to know enough if they had a barrier to do their job, I needed to remove that barrier for them or get them the resource they needed to do their job.
Right.
And so as much as that's really exciting to watch it happen, that's also probably the most difficult and challenging thing is that everybody needs something different.
Yeah,
so whether
for sure.
you're the 11th grade student who's already in, taking dual enrollment at FCTC or, St. John's River or UNF, and your teacher, and, but you also have an individual education plan for something and you need something versus, a teacher that might need something from their principal or from us or somebody that works in our department. Every single child that you are in front of needs you for something different.
Yeah.
And so figuring out what that is every day and tailoring and being able to tailor instruction when you still have obviously global standards you're trying to meet for everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of things that are aligned that are for all.
Yeah.
And then tweaking that out for each student to make sure that they are reaching their highest potential every day. I think if you asked any teacher, they'd probably say that's part of the challenge, also part of the reward.
And you're doing that for teachers too.
Right.
Yeah.
And so now our job is to make sure that we put in the hands of the teachers that are teaching our students with disabilities.
Yeah.
We give them the knowledge and the skills and the capacity to be able to serve to their highest level and effectiveness each day.
Yeah, well, it's a huge job, and we keep uncovering and things you're doing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a lot. I want to talk about COVID because I think it was, schools were ground zero, and you were a principal.
Yes.
Or you were a principal during that.
Yeah, at Palm Valley.
Yes, I can see the stress already starting to come up. Can you remember the day that it became a thing? Like,
Yeah, I can.
Because was that during a school term that it became a thing?
It was right before we went for spring break.
Okay, that's right. I remember.
And I just remember kind of standing in front of the staff and just saying, I think you should all get your laptops and make sure you have your computer cord.
Right.
And I didn't really know what else to tell them.
Right, right.
And it just was like, we'll see you soon.
Yes.
And then
was that the last day they were in school?
Yes.
Wow. So literally it's that happened that fast. And you're helping my memory, and it did happen that fast. Like nobody knew what it was. But were you ready for that? Like, I mean,
No.
That's amazing. I mean, we talk about a lot of online stuff and online, but no, I mean, traditional school's not ready. That's not what they do.
No. And so, everybody uses that word pivot. I feel like it's like an overused
Pivot,
word.
It's easy.
You just do it. But I think, again, having that team around you. I mean, we all went on spring break. The administrators in St. Johns County work the first 4 days of spring break.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of like, well, what's going to happen? What are we going to do? And then I just remember when they finally made the decision, like, no, we're not coming back. So then we were given, I think, a few extra days to try to figure out, like, what does that look like? And then very quickly it was, the drive-through. And, I remember the teachers, I think somehow the teachers were able to come in and pack up, like we got Publix, brown paper bags and packed up everybody's workbooks and their headphones and, their school supplies. And I just remember our hallways were lined with these bags, and we started organizing, like, if you're A through D, come at this time through the drive-through. If you're in this letter of the alphabet, you come at this time. And then it just became fumbling through what to do on with the virtual platforms.
Well, but like, correct me if I'm wrong, but like, not every student was just ready. Hey, yeah, I got my laptop. I'm ready to go.
No. So then it was getting all the laptops, making sure they would be able, who needed. I mean, you can't find a hotspot now, but who needed a hotspot, and the same thing. It was like, okay, now that was our next drive-through, and then it was the food drive-throughs. Like that was, we did a lot of.
Tell me what you mean by that. Like people coming to get the lunches.
Yeah.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Okay, I didn't even think about that part.
Yeah, yeah, we did that every day for a while, and and just and you're trying to keep your families in touch with what you were doing, but also your staff really needed you at that time. And so I have a distinct memory of holding a virtual staff meeting and for like Cinco de Mayo and playing bingo and something else virtually, to bring them together so everybody could see each other's faces. And we had a music teacher and an ASL teacher at the time, and they wrote a song about when the kids did start to come back, about what to do and about washing your hands. And so everybody learned the COVID song, and just had to be. That had to be,
again, you tell me, that has to be one of the most challenging things in your career. Was that it? Yeah. Trying to figure that out?
I think so. I mean, just, it was, every day was something different. And, I didn't spend, everybody else kind of, people were at home. And I just remember our close-knit admin team. I only think I spent a couple of days at home.
Right.
We were at school, but there was very, very few of us.
Is it weird teaching school when nobody's at school?
It was just, Palm Valley, our K-8s are over 200,000 square feet.
Yes.
And having them used to being filled with noise. And happiness and people, to have them empty for so long, and they were so big and so vast.
Weird, for sure.
I got some good workouts.
I would imagine.
Inside there by myself.
Well, that's super interesting. I think you underplay the magnitude of having to pivot, like you said, and do that. Well, you guys did an amazing job, and I am glad that that's over. So we are moving on from the questions for sure.
Yeah,
I've
kept my mask bag, Aaron. Do you have? I went to throw it away a couple weeks ago. I was cleaning out underneath my bathroom sink.
Don't show me any more masks, please.
I just can't. I'm not. I just zipped it back up and put it back.
Yeah, you never know. You never know.
I like some of them.
Yes. Well, you've been in education probably 25 years or so, from what I saw from your resume. What stands out different when you started versus different now? I know we have a whole podcast just on that, but like, what pops in your head?
The technology.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just think back about the first principal that hired me at Ocean Palms. I mean, I don't think he even checked email. I think they had email, and I don't remember being a teacher when I first started teaching. I don't remember email being a thing.
Right.
And so now, there's this, so for educators, I think it's this, and for kids too, it's the evolution of instant access to everybody. So it's the evolution of,
and the expectation of that,
and the communication piece and then I think for the kids too. I mean, I remember I was part of a grant-funded classroom for a couple of years where every single one of my second graders had an Apple laptop.
Right.
And I went to training every 2 weeks with this group of educators around the district, and it was like, oh, the digital camera.
Right. I remember
and
that.
so it's like we got the digital cameras to learn how to use them and implement them into the classroom environment. And then, it just is so different to watch now how fast you can get information and how fast you can use it as a tool to do good.
Yeah.
Or a tool to harm.
Right.
And then just I feel like I had more flexibility as a teacher.
Yeah.
And the way I taught and the pace. That was the other thing. It was just the pace. I mean,
pace being much faster now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. And so just the demands on kids and the stress on kids and the expectations on the kids, but then the expectations on, the teachers, and then everybody expects something right away. So even back to that safety thing, I used to say to the parents, you don't email your teachers 5 times during the school day. Your teachers should be teaching your kid.
Yeah, right.
And so somebody goes and emails a transportation change, well, the teacher might not see it.
Right.
And then also, it's like, this isn't the way this works. And,
for sure.
Working through some of those things and when it's appropriate to communicate and how we communicate. And, I would talk with parents about that. You know, this person that is responsible for your child 7 hours a day has their own life.
Right.
And so what's important for you is also, we want to make sure that's important, but how do you protect that teacher too, to make sure they can still give 100% to your kid every single day?
No, that's really good. I just what happened to the good old overhead projectors? With the light, you get to draw on it and all that stuff. I remember that.
And the triplicates.
Yes.
The forms that were pink, yellow, and white. I think we still have a couple of those for certain things, but a lot of that stuff has changed for the good.
Yeah.
And like I said, that what you can do to help students. That's also, just the amount of assistive technology and what we can do to help students that do have a disability. And we have just some amazing technology, whether it's part of, for hearing loss or for vision or a physical disability, things that have just really smart people have invented some really cool things.
Well, I know if it can fix
kids.
My horrendous spelling, ChatGPT, it's like an amazing technology. I blew up spell check that wasn't good enough for me. So that's really interesting.
Helping students understand how to manage that pace and manage the pressures, and then also helping a teacher. A teacher's has to compete with all that. So, if I can get
Attention.
all this stimuli in front of me from my iPad or my phone or whatever, what does engagement in the classroom have to look like for your brain to move from that type of stimuli to now I'm in front of my teacher and, does my teacher have to be an actor and actress all day long?
Right.
So
no, that's I mean, the pace, that's what strikes me is the pace. So kind of a funny question.
Okay.
I know you have a son and daughter. What was it like for them when mom was the boss at work? Or were you the assistant when they were in school?
So Tyler was with me
Okay.
when I was the principal at Ocean Palms.
Okay.
So that was the only time I was the principal.
Okay.
And
Did he
was in
ever pull the
4th and
principal
5th grade.
card or get out
What
of
I
jail
think
free?
is funny is because I always used to tell them, you all need to like have a low profile. Like people around the community should not know who you are.
Well,
and,
it's funny because that was another one of my questions is that I always felt like when you get to that status, a principal and even a teacher, that there's some hesitation to go out to dinner. Like, because you might run into all the people and, that just like, hey, I'm off. I'm good.
Yeah, he is. I mean, I tried to treat him as equal as I would everybody else, but he had his little group. And I mean, I don't think he really cared that I was the principal.
Good.
He would
Good
come
for
in my
him.
office after school to get all his snacks and eat his candy. And then I'd come in needing to have a meeting in there and have to kick
Get
him
him
out.
out.
And then they've recently showed me some videos that they took around Ocean Palms.
Oh, good.
And so that's fun
Yeah,
to watch
yeah.
them do things that they shouldn't have been doing.
Right.
But I think, I hope that they, it's a lot. Like you were saying, being in the community and always kind of being on.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially because if you have kids, I mean, my kids were fortunate enough because I've been an educator and an employee of St. Johns County for them to go through the St. Johns County school system, but we don't live in St. Johns.
Right.
So that was a job perk.
Yeah.
And so I really tried to instill in them this is a privilege.
Yeah.
And to get this education, and you need to take it seriously. But then you do get embedded, whether you're at soccer or cheerleading or the grocery store or the restaurants. And I always love seeing kids because I think, especially the little kids, I think they just really looked at you out of context and thought I think they thought there was a bed at school. Like
You're actually real outside of school.
Yeah, and you have your exercise outfit on or whatever it is. So for the most part, it's been great. I mean, I would say 99.9% of people respect that, understand that, and they're happy to
whether
have
you
as
want
part
to
of the
admit
community.
it, once you, even teacher, principal, you're kind of a little bit of celebrity. So I know I've always thought that. You probably answered this already. Like, how did you deal with the stress and all that? And I know you're big into exercise. So is that your thing? Running, jogging, sprinting, whatever you do?
Probably not sprinting, but I just think finding a balance, trying to practice what you preach, and I wasn't always great at it.
Yeah.
I'd really try to tell the staff that every year, and the staff I have now, just remind them of the importance. Like if you can't, if you can't be well inside for yourself, you're not going to be well for somebody else that you have to serve.
Yeah.
And I think trying to do that, and I think for my own two kids, there's a lot of sacrifice, and I mean, you have a wife who's an educator.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, everybody, I don't know hardly anyone in the field of education that works a 40-hour work week.
Right.
And there's lots of professions like that. But I do think that when our kids see us and what we're hopefully modeling of service over self, that it's helped them become the adults they are. I mean, my daughter's 21 and my son's 19, and I don't think they have any real regrets about that, and a husband that was supportive. And I know you've been super supportive of Christy in her career as well, but I think that's what you have to have. And then just trying to find, again, I think balance is hard because I don't know if there's really any such thing.
Right.
But knowing when to turn it off, knowing when to not respond to something, knowing that I had a principal mentor tell me one time, if you've got 85% of your faculty or your families that love you, you are doing a good job.
You're knocking it out of the park.
And so I would tell that to teachers too. You know, you're not going to win everybody over, and our job is not to make everybody happy.
Yeah.
Our job is to teach their kids and to run a safe school, and we might not always agree, but we can do it in a professional manner and try not to take things personally.
Well, I think what people don't understand is that teachers are always on.
Yeah.
It's not like a job where you go and you move paperwork and you can go take a coffee break and walk around. Like, you're always on. I wanted to hit real quick, St. Johns County, you've been there since the beginning. What an amazing explosion it's been. And the explosion doesn't seem to be ending. Talk about a little bit of what you've seen, like where you started and where you are now.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy.
Can
to
you
think
even
about.
talk like how many students were in the St. Johns County 20 years ago versus now?
Oh gosh, I think so I know for a fact it's over doubled. So
wow.
I think in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on that, but we're at right around 52,000 students. And so that is for sure, because when we just went through those 2 referendums, that was some of the talking points to the community of why it was so important. And thank you, community, for passing those 2 referendums. But was the growth. I mean, the population of St. Johns County itself had doubled, and I think the student population was like at 110% growth.
Wow.
And so
still top in the state.
Still just, we have a need for, obviously, all these schools. We're building K-8s. That's really what we build for the most part.
Right.
But yeah, I think, one of the things is when I first got to Ocean Palms, it was around the size it was built for.
Yeah.
For year 1.
Mm-hmm.
And then it quickly grew. The whole time I was a principal, my schools grew by 15 to 20% per year.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think if you think about that, like in the business field, that's great for certain aspects if you're for what you're producing,
right.
But I was hiring whole new schools every single year of teams.
Like, as a principal though, are you literally responsible for everything in the school? Like, do we have enough toilet paper? Do we is there enough food? Like all of like the individual things.
So technically speaking, yes. I mean, if something goes wrong, yes, you're responsible, but you're also responsible for putting together those teams. And I think that was one of the things I love putting teams together and putting people around me that are smarter than me, that don't, do I have to know about the supplies and the toilet paper? Yeah, but I only have to know, this little bit. Yeah. I need to hire the maintenance manager that knows all the details.
Mm-hmm.
And I also have to know that maintenance manager is going to hire a great staff that are going to work for him or with him.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, who are you going to pick as your grade level chair, your department chair at a high school? You have to have these people around you. You have to have that ability to delegate leadership, because you can't be everywhere. But you have to trust the people that are, managing your finances and your books and the people who are serving the food in the cafeteria.
Yeah.
And
what a huge job. Going back a little bit to when you were a teacher, you don't have to give me names, but can you remember some of your favorite students right off the bat?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, I don't know about favorites, but kids that just, you'll remember or you see. I mean, that's the one great part about being in this community.
Yeah.
I mean, you can, and being here for so long is that I get to, and in my role now, I get to participate in graduation.
Yeah.
And so watching I still have a few more years, because some of the kids I first taught are in their 30s.
Yeah.
But I still have a few more years of kids that will be graduating that, we're either in kindergarten or first grade at Ocean Palms, or we're still at Palm Valley. So I love sitting at graduation and reading through all the names. And then if I happen to get to be on their side to hand them their diploma or shake their hand to see if they recognize me, I think that's really fun.
Yeah, that's cool. Was there were any of your students ever become famous?
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure they became famous in their own right for different things, but I'll tell you a cool story.
Okay, cool.
So going back to the 5th grade teacher, Mr. Clay, that read.
Okay.
So he read Roald Dahl. That's what he read. BFG, James and the Giant Peach, Matilda, right? And Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, right? So, because he loved Roald Dahl, I love Roald Dahl. And at one point, somehow when Roald Dahl was still alive, I got picked to be in phone interview with Roald Dahl and ask him some questions. So that kind of stuck with me all along. Then I read Roald Dahl. So just in the last couple of years, one of the students I had in my second grade class has opened up her own bookstore in Austin, Texas. And she told her mother-in-law, who happens to be a teacher and friend of mine, that part of her inspiration for wanting to do that was when she sat in class and we read Roald Dahl.
Wow.
So,
what full circle.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with you. You had your inspiration, now you're the inspiration for others.
Yeah.
Well, wrapping up, I wanted to ask you, people thinking about getting an education, whether you're in college or you're out of college, you want to go back to what are some things that you feel like you want them to know? Like what's your advice? Like, how do I get in? What branch do I go into? What would I do?
So I think it comes back to that heart piece. I mean, you have to want to be a teacher.
Yeah.
And I think if you've got the heart piece, you can be taught all the other things, especially those that are coming. We have, a large population, especially with our teachers that teach students with disabilities, of people coming alt-cert or alternative certifications into the field. We can help support you, but I can't teach you to love kids.
Right.
And I could usually tell within about 60 seconds of an interview.
I would think so.
Of whether somebody had that.
Right.
And that in them.
Yes.
And so I would say that's first and foremost. And then I think you should, I would encourage anyone just to go volunteer.
Right.
Around their local schools.
Right.
Become a volunteer. Just go observe. Go to multiple different grade levels, to different schools. If somebody's really thinking about it, sign up to be a substitute and try it out.
Substitute's great. Yeah.
And then you got to have your people. It takes a village to raise a kid.
Yeah.
It takes a village to survive, I think, as an educator these days as well. And so I think you have to put yourself around a core group of people that know what you're trying to accomplish and that are there to support you along the way. So I would that's what I would tell people. And it's sad to watch our universities and our college of education programs declining.
Right.
And I think we need whatever we can do to advocate for people to choose the profession, and sometimes the profession chooses you. But I want to be a part of that because
I think you illustrated it earlier, how important teachers are, because your teachers in the 4th and 5th grade motivated you to do this whole list of stuff right here. That's pretty cool. And now you have students doing the same thing. Yeah. So it's cool because you said you can kind of test drive it a little bit. Volunteer, substitute. And if you can make it through substitution, I mean, gosh, you're winning for sure.
Yeah.
Well, this was awesome, Jessica. Thank you. I know our audience is going to love this because you bring so much to the table. And I loved your insights on your experiences of being a teacher, principal, assistant principal. It's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Aaron. I have to give a shout out. I do have to say, since I have the floor, kind of.
Got the floor.
And again, another just super impactful because I know, Christy, for the audience, that your wife was Tyler's first grade teacher. And, I know she treated every student that's ever come across her path like she treated Tyler.
Yeah.
And he was just one of those kids that was kind of sensitive, and he needed a little extra TLC every day, especially with his mom working at school. And she just was so amazing with him, and she taught him to read.
Oh, awesome.
And so
that's pretty special. She's still working on me reading too, so it works out perfectly.
So, but she, I know that's how she was with everybody, but it's just, and I think that's a great part about being in education too, is that you build lifelong friendships with people and connections, and they end up becoming part of your family. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Christy and all the teachers out there, but
all the teachers for sure.
Impact.
It is absolutely hard work, but man, you could make the case it's probably the most important work. So
and the most rewarding.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
The Hometown Jacks podcast is recorded and produced by First Coast Mortgage Funding, located in the heart of Jacksonville. Do you want to be our next guest? Visit our website at hometownjackspodcast.com. We can't wait to hear your story.